Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Stewarts Soundbites. This is episode 54. Every time I say it, I'm surprised that we're all still going, but here we are. And I've got a treat for you today because you don't have to listen to me for very long at all. So I'm here with my colleague, Chris Deacon, who's a partner in our aviation and international injury team. Hello, Chris. Thank you very much for taking over today.
Pleasure. Good to be here. Thanks, Emma.
And we are joined by Bryan Joubert today, and thank you so much for being here, Bryan, because I know I'm so excited about this episode because it's going to be super interesting. I mean, I'm going to pass over to Chris. I'm not going to reveal all the spoilers here, but Bryan's going to talk about some really, really interesting stuff. I'm going to pass over to Chris to introduce Bryan properly and give you a bit of a rundown as to what we'll be talking about today.
Thanks very much, Emma. Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for letting us do this international takeover on the Stewarts Soundbites. And
sure.
Delighted to welcome Bryan from NGS, Northcott Global Solutions. Now, for those of you that haven't heard of NGS, they're an international emergency response company. So they specialise in evacuations from far-flung destinations and also places closer to home. Medical assistance, security and travel risk management. And so we thought we'd look today in particular at how NGS help in the context of a medical evacuation following a serious injury overseas. But perhaps to begin with, Bryan, you could start by telling us in overview what NGS does to support individuals and organisations in relation to international travel, and sort of leading on from that, how would a client of NGS, or perhaps someone who isn't a client of NGS, know when to call you in the event that they had a serious incident overseas?
Brilliant, thanks, Chris. So yes, NGS, as you've mentioned, has got quite a large scale of things that we look at in terms of the international travel and safeguarding and international patient repatriation of people and organizations, employees when they do travel. So traditionally, the assistance world would look after sort of the medical and security needs of an organization or individual, and they'd initiate response as and when is needed, generally with a 3 to 5 day activation time. What is quite nice is that we look and involve a lot more. We are more focused at point of incident. So where the traditional repatriation is kind of, once the person's been seen in a hospital and now they're ready to be taken home, or they've had first line care and now need to be moved to specialist care. The main factor for us is that point of incident response, that getting to the point of injury. And so that's really where we come in, is, we like to get involved from the outset and then follow all the way through to the claims handling process. And so that's not necessarily got to do with the point of incident, but we like to get involved from the beginning to the end, taking over that holistic management of the incident.
Yeah, and I can see the benefits of that, particularly in cases of serious injury, life-changing injuries overseas. From the outset, there's a lot of support that the client, the patient will need, and so that holistic approach is going to really benefit the long-term outcomes. I mean, if we take the example, we're coming towards the end of the ski season in Europe certainly now, but if we take the example of a client who has suffered spinal injuries in a collision on the piste, say in Europe, when would you first expect to be notified of that incident, and how would you respond to ensure the client receives appropriate assistance overseas?
So I think one of our differentiators is that we'd like to know before you even leave on your holiday. We've got a whole package that would include the tracking of where you're going. You can do safe check-ins. But if we already know that you are on a trip and that there is the potential for harm, even better. The sooner that we're notified, the better. That can all be done through an integrated app. that we've got that gives access to the 24-hour operations center with the team there. There's the medical operations team, security, tracking. There's a whole team there. And part of what we do is we look at specific trips. So we don't look at a country or a specific region and go, okay, well, if something happens there, we kind of have this and that. If you've let us know that, on day 1 to 3, you'll be at resort A, and then eventually ending up at resort Z, well, we can already have planned that, and we can have looked at service providers. So the sooner we get notified, the better, because we will have planned that emergency response, and all it takes is the activation, the validation, and the activation to point of incident, that response to the location of injury.
Okay. So in that scenario, you're on the piste, another skier knocks you down, you're on the ground, you know that you've suffered a serious injury. You might not be quite aware of the extent of it at that point in time. Hopefully, in those circumstances, there'll be people around you that are there to support you, friends, family, perhaps even strangers. If you said, well, I need to call on NGS, I've got this support in place, how would, you mentioned the app, how would the individual in practical terms kind of go about getting you on board?
So again, through the app, if they do have their phone with them, we also have an international number that people can phone, which goes straight through to the operations control center. So it's not a conventional call center where you speak to someone and they go, thank you, we'll take your details and we'll get back to you. You're dealing with the people that are making the decisions. You're dealing with the people that are activating those resources that will be speaking to those providers. So through telephonic communication, through the app, those are the most direct, but also we have the 24-hour email that are monitored. So as soon as you can, in whatever means possible, get hold of us. And if you're worried about, international call charges or whatever, phone us and say you need us to call us back. Send us a message or an activation through that, and we will call you. We really want to take as much of the burden around the activation administration away from you, and are happy to manage every single aspect. So all we need to do is be notified, and we can take over.
Yeah. One of the drums that we're constantly banging in terms of risk management around international travel is making sure that people have got sufficient travel insurance that actually is going to cover the activities that they intend to do when they're traveling overseas, and has the right territorial limits, etc. What's the kind of interplay of the service that NGS offers in following a serious incident with the travel insurance that an individual might hold?
So, with the number of our insurers that we work with and direct clients, again, it comes into, we know about these trips, we have agreements. That's not to say we can't help somebody that isn't a client of NGS's prior to departure, but generally we have an agreement, and we've got a delegated authority. So in the event of an emergency, we can be contacted, and NGS can make those decisions, can appoint service providers within that delegated authority to ensure emergency medical care is received by that person at the point of incident. Once that initial response, so there's kind of the two phases. There's the initial activate, let's get the help that we need to these people, followed up by the financial side of things, the claims handling, cost containment. But the relationship is there that our insurers trust us to make those decisions for the best interests of their clients when they do travel.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. And I mean, you mentioned cost containment there. What many people might not realize is that if they do need to receive medical treatment overseas, the bills are racking up if they're in hospital, or even if they're having medical treatment on a sort of outpatient basis. And at the end of the day, the insurers will then negotiate those bills with the medical provider. And this is a particular, I've kind of described it as an industry in the States in particular, where you see very high medical bills. You then have cost containment companies that come in and help negotiate those down. So just to kind of put a bit of context to that aspect of the work that you're doing, which wouldn't, the client isn't going to see the impact of that. It would happen afterwards. Obviously, the first priority is making sure that they're getting the the treatment, the assistance that they need. And you mentioned that, it's not just individuals with insurance policies that you're helping. Sometimes I see this on my cases as well, individuals that have gone overseas without travel insurance for whatever reason, or they've got insurance, but it's not going to cover them for the particular circumstances. And there's obviously a cost for getting a company like NGS involved, but it's not unusual for us to see in those uninsured situations individuals or their families doing crowdfunding to help get them repatriated. And I suppose in those circumstances, if they need to turn to a specialist company for input, NGS is the type of entity that they could turn to in those circumstances.
So there's three, there's always three scenarios. There's the quickest, and that, we can provide, we always do provide the three options: the quickest, the fastest, and then a tailor-made solution that will best meet the needs of that particular incident. Because the emergency setting is not a cookie cutter industry. It's not something that, well, when somebody breaks a leg, it's exactly the same process from the point of injury to the rehabilitation. And so we will always look at each case and assess each case individually to provide a solution that we feel would be the best and most appropriate course of action for that given incident.
Yeah. Do you provide any support in terms of, if let's take our example of the ski collision, the other skier may be at fault and the individual might be looking to claim against that skier's insurance policy for the damages that they've sustained. Do you have any input in kind of trying to direct the evidence that they might gather to best protect their position subsequently?
So we would always act in the best interests of our client. And, GDPR is a very real thing and something we take a lot of pride in. People's information is confidential, injuries are confidential. We do have a team that are able to assess and go through and provide reporting on specific incidents and medical reports provided, to see that, was the treatment given in line with the injury sustained? Are the costs reasonable? Is there something that could have been done that wasn't done, or was the patient overtreated or undertreated? Do they require to be moved? So they may be at a local facility but require a specialist procedure. Maybe they need a hip replacement, but the type of hip that they need for their body build is not exactly available there, or they don't have the specialist. What would be the recommended course of action there? Which facility should we take them to? So in terms of the legal aspect, we were able to provide reports, provided the correct setting is in place and the correct channels are followed to allow for the release of that information. But just on a whim, a phone call, hi, I was involved in that. Do you have medical reports? Absolutely not.
Okay, no, understood. And while that process is ongoing and you're coordinating the medical treatment and assistance the individual is receiving in the country where they've been injured, there's certainly a lot that can be done to start thinking about gathering evidence if the individual does then want to bring a liability claim against a third party when they return home. And in the context of ski accidents, I actually recently prepared an article looking at managing the risks of ski accidents, which I think you've read yourself, Bryan. I don't know whether Emma has as well, but we're going to provide a link to that at the end of the notes at the end of the webinar. So if that is of interest to anyone, then you can have a look. And I think many of the points we make there, the kind of top tips for managing the risks of winter sports, also apply to other activities as we edge towards the summer and people are thinking of their summer holidays and what they might get involved in. I mean, on that topic, Bryan, and I suppose really to sort of wrap up, if I don't know how we're doing for time, but what can people do to limit their risk and ensure that should the worst happen, they are covered, that someone's got their back, someone like NGS is going to be able to step in and support them?
So again, it comes down to that proper prior planning. I'm not going to complete the entire phrase, but proper prior planning is key to ensure that you are covered. So again, referring to your article, that insurance factor, travel insurance is paramount. Making use of an organization such as NGS, where we can manage your travel for you and ensure that you are covered on a global scale. It could mean that, yes, your holiday might, be in Switzerland, but you've got a layover in France, or, you might be in South Africa and coming back and you have a layover in Dubai. You need to be covered in all those aspects, in all parts of your journey. You may, during your layover, be there for 2 or 3 days, and then there might be some political unrest, but it all comes down to the planning. If people know where you are and they know where you're traveling, we're able to provide a rapid solution, a rapid response to the point of incident wherever you are in the world.
Yeah, excellent. And well, as restrictions continue to ease, looking forward, as I say, to the summer season, let's hope we can get back to international travel. And it's not without risk, but it's all about how is that managed so that we can go and get back to enjoying, certainly one of my biggest passions in life is going and experiencing other places, new cultures, and knowing that you're properly covered and supported in the event that the worst does come to pass is obviously a reassurance.
And I think a point on that is, when you're traveling, it's often you've got a lot of excitement. The last thing you want to be worrying about is, well, am I going to be safe? What's going to happen to me if there is an emergency? To use I want to say the old saying now of COVID and the forever changing restrictions associated with that. Having an organization that's able to provide you those insights and update you when there are new restrictions, if there are security alerts, if there's any medical advice, vaccinations, if you have someone such as NGS that can provide all of that information to you, it takes that worry and hassle around planning a fun holiday or a fun trip. It takes that responsibility of the individual or organization.
Yeah, sure. Well,
do you mind if I ask a question, Bryan? Because it's so interesting. And sometimes I feel like when I do these sound bites, I kind of instill the fear of God into people when we're talking about all this, because we live in a world of catastrophic injury, sadly. And, some of this stuff kind of invokes a bit of the fear factor, but this actually is all about kind of that reassurance, isn't it? And I was wondering to what extent you work with individuals who've maybe already had a life-changing injury and are wanting to travel, post-injury and in whatever way, however that looks for them. Do you work with?
Sorry, Emma, you broke
sorry,
up there a little bit.
Sorry, I think my internet's a bit dodgy today. Unfortunately, it's perfect timing. But
I think I've got an answer. So let me see if I can answer this, and then if I have it, then you can let me know.
Okay.
We're able to assist with the movement of anybody, whether it is a patient, whether it is just a normal person wanting an air charter. We're able to facilitate any sort of movement, specifically around patients and those that have had catastrophic injuries that would still like to be going on holiday or have now been discharged and need to get home. Again, it comes down to what I said, the 3 options: the fastest, the cheapest, and what we believe is the most fitting for that specific individual or situation. And so, sometimes an air ambulance isn't what is needed. And so we're able to facilitate the movement via commercial aircraft, whether that be with a medical escort or not a medical escort, but just somebody to assist. We're looking at escorts in maybe non-emergent situations, but where someone is needing constant an outpatient treatment, but there might be a language barrier because they have a month or two's recovery in that location. Well, then we're able to facilitate, translators, and so we're all about the holistic management and providing a solution. There's nothing that we can't do. That we always say that if you phone me right now and say, right now, can you do something? I might say, give me 10 minutes. Give me some time. We will come back to you with a solution, and that's what NGS is all about: is coming up with that solution to any need, whether it be medical, security, maritime, land, air, sea, you name it. We're definitely able to facilitate the movement on a global scale.
Oh, thank you, Bryan. And despite me cutting off, you answered it perfectly. So thank you very much. And I was just thinking about kind of people watching, whether they're rehab professionals or case managers or whatever, and dealing with a catastrophically injured individual, kind of thinking about that kind of maybe extra layer of protection is quite reassuring. So thank you ever so much. Sorry I butted in.
No, that's a really good and important question and consideration for the work that we do, and you know, many of the people that I know regularly attend these sessions will be interested to hear. So thanks for raising that, Em.
Sure, for sure. Yeah. Well, we are. I've sent us over time as normal, but you've done so well at keeping it so succinct. We're very grateful, and because this is a pre-recorded episode, we're not able to take any questions kind of in real time. But what we will do is we will put some contact details on an end slide of this recording. So if you do have any queries, you want to maybe touch base with Bryan, one of the members of his team, about the work that NGS do, or make an inquiry. Anything at all, you can contact. We'll make sure the contact details are available, and of course my inbox is always open. And thank you both so much. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Bryan, for a brilliant session. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you both for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. Take care.
Have a great day.
Thank you.